We've had a little bit, about an inch and a half the last week or so, but we won't hurt to get a little bit more. So if it starts thundering louder than I can talk, don't worry about it. But if it starts thundering louder than Lucille can talk, get in the basement. Uh-huh. Jerry Carmichael is here with us this morning. He is, I have told you all 2 or 3 times that he's at North Lexington, but I know better than that, and I'm wrong. He's at the Rolling Hill Church of Christ in Mount Sterling. Rolling Hills Church of Christ. He's an elder, and he's one of the evangelists there as well. So I've known Jerry a long, long time. He's an excellent preacher and a good man, and he's worked in the ministry for about 45 years, I think, haven't you, Jerry? And we're really glad to have him. He'll preach our Bible class this morning. Daniel and Mary are still on their trip. They're having a good time. They're in Plattsville, New York this morning. Jimmy and Jill are gone to Florida, and they're almost there, I think. So we pray for them to have a safe trip. Glad that you all are here. We had a fantastic birthday party get-together last night for Ben Price, and it was just, couldn't have had a better time. And about 75 people or so that was there. So we had a fantastic time out the Logan Hubble Park. And they said the next like that will be in September. Kevin, the fish fry in September. So, and if you win, I know you enjoyed that. And we're going to be studying this morning from the book of Mark chapter 8. You're certainly welcome to use your Bibles, but all the verses we read probably will be on the board. And I welcome your input. And we're making our way through the book of Mark, Jerry, and that's how we do things. And we have Jesus has compassion on the multitude. Someone read these verses for me, the first 3 verses of Mark chapter 8. Okay. The multitude is very great. They're following Jesus around. Jesus' fame and popularity is growing. But now think about this. This is easy to read right past, because I've compassion on the multitude. They have now continued with me 3 days. They have now continued with me 3 days. How many of you all it's been 3 days since you ate? Most likely it's not been 30 minutes for most of us. I eat a lot. Often, okay? That's how I do. I don't know how everybody else does. But I'm glad that refrigerator's there, aren't you, Leland? You can go get you something pretty quick, or the pantry or the cupboard or whatever it is. Jesus clearly had something positive to say. Some of these people were expecting a miracle, or they were expecting to see something fantastic happen. Some were expecting maybe to be fed, because we talked earlier that he had fed 5,000 men at one time. Maybe some of them is more of a sideshow to some people. But regardless, there's a huge multitude. But I think most of these people there are good and sincere people that are truly looking for the Messiah. These are Jewish people predominantly. They are looking for the Messiah. They had the wrong idea about how he's going to come. Okay? How many of you ever watched a movie, and this girl is always looking for the right man, Mr. Right? That's the premise of a lot of movies. I'm looking for Mr. Right. I'm looking for Mr. Right. And the whole time, Mr. Right, while she's looking out here, has been right here. That's the premise of a lot of movies, isn't it? And it's a pretty, what's that? Every Hallmark movie that ever was, okay? The Forrest Gump, the little movie Forrest Gump, Jenny, she'd been better off. She'd have hung out with Forrest from the get-go, wouldn't she? Instead of the life that she chose to live, rather than poor, simple Forrest. So sometimes people don't look like you think they're going to look like. I'm going to marry Prince Charming, or I'm going to marry the princess, or something like that. Oftentimes, that's not how it works out, is it? But oftentimes, it works out very, very good, okay? It works out very, very good. Jesus maybe wasn't like everybody else, but what kind of speaker was he? the best. He was the best. No one has ever talked like this. And if you don't believe it, if you want to hear a good sermon, just go to the Sermon on the Mount. Just I'll read that. If you want to hear a good prayer, just go to John chapter 17. Let's read Jesus' prayer. And then you also see the compassion and the kindness in Jesus' voice. In John 12:27, it says, now is my soul exceedingly troubled. He's begging his God. But what shall I say? Jesus came to be executed upon the cross, and he knew it. He did not have to be. He could have called how many legions of angels? 12 legions of angels. A figure maybe as high as 72,000 people Jesus could have called it. And it wouldn't have took 72,000. I've said this 10 million times, and I'll say it 10 million more if I live. One could have done it, couldn't it, Jerry? One could have done it. One angel of death rolled into Egypt one night, and the next morning, every firstborn was dead. The Assyrian army, they woke up one morning and they was all dead. This 140,000 people. One night, Jesus had the disposal. Say the word, snap your fingers, however you want to do it, it would happen, okay? But Jesus is, we talk about this a lot in Acts 10:38. Jesus went about doing good, okay? That's why, folks, we need to yearn for Jesus, and we need to look for him. And when we find him, we need to embrace him, and we need to hold on to him. Amen? Amen. Don't ever let him go. Even if you preach for 45 years, keep preaching. Right, Jerry? Keep preaching. Preach a little more. Preach a little more. I knew a man that was 96 years old, and they put him in the hospital because his heart was gone. And down in Whitesburg area of the state. And he taught a Bible class on Sunday morning while he was in the hospital. And the doctor said, don't do that again. Your heart's went completely haywire. And he said, I'm going to preach as long as I can. Next Sunday, he preached again at the little hospital chapel. And on Tuesday, he died. Okay? On Tuesday, he died. He's going to die anyway. But he thought, I'm going to keep preaching. Tom, your daddy preached right up till the week before he died. Isn't that precious? Studying for the next sermon. Bless his heart. My great-grandfather, and Boo's great-grandfather, did his Sunday school lesson. He had a bad heart. His Sunday school lesson on Saturday night, laid his Bible aside, said a prayer, laid down in the bed, and died. That's a good way to go, folks. That's a good way to go. That's a fantastic way to go. These people are yearning for Jesus because the world as they see it is unfulfilling, okay? You're not going to be satisfied with this world, okay? You're not going to be satisfied with this world. Because somebody has something bigger, fancier, nicer, and shinier than you. I promise you that. You can go out today and buy a $100,000 boat and take it down to Lake Cumberland this afternoon, and you've got a really nice boat. But there'll be boats there that make yours look like a toy. You're like, what's a brand new boat? I paid $100,000 for it. And there's one that the guy paid $2 million for. Yeah, it's true. You can't win that battle, can you? Okay. So Jesus, though, has got this good heart, and he's worried about these people. So if I send them away, they will faint, for some of them have come from afar. Okay, let's continue. This tells us about Jesus. Read this verse for me, someone. That describes the Lord. He is gracious and full of compassion. Would you have been as forgiving as God has been to you in your life? And I tell you what, you hang my son on a cross, Shelby Roy is not going to be forgiving at all, okay? I'm going to come at you with a shotgun or a rifle or something, and we're going to have a bad falling out, okay? You're not killing my son. I'm not having it. That's what most parents would say, wouldn't they? You're not taking my son or my daughter. Nope, that's crossing the line. You can talk ugly to me and be hateful to me, but you're not doing that. The Lord is gracious, full of compassion, slow to anger, and great in mercy. Jesus, hanging on the cross, said to the people that were hanging him on the cross, that hated him, what did he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Folks, we could be a lot more like Jesus. The world would be a whole lot better place, wouldn't it? Okay, read 4 and 5, someone. Okay, they've got 7 loaves. They're in the wilderness, okay? There probably weren't any Dollar General stores very close by where they live. Probably not. There might have been, yeah. There might have been. It's hard for us to be in the wilderness today, isn't it? Because there's something just around the corner. Towns and with the vehicle travel and stuff that we have now, it's easy to get there, okay? It's easy to get there. I was talking to a couple boys one time that were hiking the entire Appalachian Trail, and so this one guy had a car, and they asked me to spend the night at this hostel with them, and a couple guys, one from Washington, D.C., and one from Florida, and I thought, that sounds better than sleeping in a tent. So I got a little bed and slept there before. And one guy said, I've got a car here. You want to ride into town? I said, yes, let's ride into town and get some real food. And so these 2 boys are walking into town. And so they just are leaving the place. And so, of course, these are experienced hikers. And we stopped and said, do you all want to ride into town? We're going in town to get something to eat. You want to go with? They said, no, we'll just walk. It's just a mile and a half. Well, they're used to walking, and they're in good shape, and they're young, and we said, sure, it's good, just a mile and a half, okay? Stuff in those days of Jesus was hard to find, okay? And you could truly be without food. And Jesus says, well, how many loaves do you have? They said, well, we've got 7. Mark 8, 6, and 7, someone. Okay, so Jesus tells the multitude to sit down. This is a big crowd. This is a big crowd. I asked Tom one time how many people he had played bluegrass music for in times past. He said maybe 15,000 people in North Carolina. That's a lot of people. Tom says it's pretty intimidating when you step out there on the stage, okay? I'm sure it is. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of people. Jesus does everything, though, always how? As Paul would instruct the church to do it how? Decently and in order. Last night at the gathering we had with 75 people, Melvina had to make sure that things were put out decently and in order, and other people helped her with that, okay? And it was, Melvina. It was fantastic. If not, if you left me and Kevin in charge of it, it's a mess, okay? I'll speak for you, Kevin, okay? Kevin and Shelby Roy can't do it, okay? We cannot do it. I could take the nicest furniture in the world and set it into a fancy living room, and it would look like a clown show, okay? Deb can go in there, and she can say, this chair needs to be here, and this needs here, and it looks perfect. She has that skill. I don't have it, okay? And that's okay. Jesus, so, wants to make sure that things are done decently in order. Otherwise, things become chaotic. Otherwise, some people get fed 3 times, and others don't get fed at all, right? Y'all understand that? So he told the people, sit down. He took the 7 loaves, and what did he do? He blessed it, gave thanks for it. Should we always be thankful? We should always be thankful. There's not a time in our life that we should not be thankful for the sustenance that we've been given, the air that we've been given to breathe, the lives that we've been given. Every day is a good day. Every day is a good day. Because a lot of folks, it's their last day, okay? And one of these days, it will be our last day. My cousin Gladys Saylor died Friday evening, and she was almost 98 years old. She lived a good, long life, okay? And good, long life. Great, faithful Christian woman, okay? Faithful to the Lord her entire life, okay? But Friday afternoon, late, was her last day, okay? Here on this earth. Her last day. They had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them. So we should always be thankful, and we should always give thanks to God for the things that we've been given. Someone read Mark 8, 8 and 9 for me.
We need to do that not only with the good things, but also with the things that we perceive to be bad.
Yeah.
Because God has allowed in our lives for a reason, whether it's to teach us, to fix us, to help someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Too oftentimes we want to grumble and complain about what went wrong in the past. They're there for a reason too. We need to be thankful and appreciative.
We need to be thankful and amen. So what happened here, folks?
So they ate were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000.
Okay, 4,000 people. That's a lot. That's a lot. And now continue, someone, 41 through 44. Okay, this is in Mark chapter 6, okay? We kind of backed up there just a little bit. Mark chapter 6, 5,000 men. Mark chapter 8, 4,000 people, okay? That's what the Bible tells us, okay? But huge crowds, okay? Mark chapter 6, 5,000. Mark chapter 8, the study we're with today, 4,000, okay? So Mark chapter 8, and then they had 12 baskets full of fragments left over. This story here is there's a few verses here in 1 Kings. We'll talk about Elijah sent to the widow of Zarephath. And someone read this for me. I think there's 3 slides here. So somebody hop in there and read this. Okay, it always slaps me right in the face when I make with a little flour of bread, and I'm going to feed it to me and my son, and then we're going to what? We're going to die. We're going to starve to death. These people are going through a terrible famine, And Elijah shows up on the scene, and he says, would you get me something to drink? And as she's getting him something to drink, she's going to walking away. She says, and bring me some bread. This is my words. And she says, as my soul liveth, I'm telling you the honest truth, I don't have but just a tiny bit of flour. Now, folks, have you ever been that hungry? Most of us have not ever been that hungry, okay? Another hiking story, a friend of mine went hiking for the very first time. He tied his food up in the tree at night to keep the bears out of it. The bears climbed up in the tree and got it anyway. And he said the only thing they did not eat was his coffee grounds. So he said that's the only thing he's the only thing he learned from that. And so he spent the next 2 days hiking because he don't have any food. Now, he wasn't going to starve to death, but it's not real pleasant, okay? It's not real pleasant not having. These people were going to die. This is terrible, okay? This is terrible. But God says, Elijah says, no, you just fix your little bread and it won't run out. It won't run out if you'll be good to me. And it didn't. God is capable, isn't he? God is always capable of attending to our needs. Okay, now we shift gears a little bit. Jesus has fed the 4,000. People are, I'm sure, very pleased with that. They've been fed abundantly. And they just like they've been done before, whether it's the same group of people. I'm sure a lot of them were the very same people that was there earlier. And so then we shift gears, and the Pharisees are asking for a sign. The Pharisees, a sect of the Jews. Read 9 and 10, someone. The region of Dalmanutha. Does anybody know where that is? Ta-da. Here it is. The city of Magdala is in Dalmanutha is probably the same thing. Magdala is also known as Dalmanutha. This thought to be the home of Mary Magdalene, meaning tower or greatness, okay? This is where Jesus is. There's the Sea of Galilee. Okay, we've seen these things a lot. This is this region here, okay? There's Bethlehem, okay? Anyway, we're going to learn this stuff before it's all over as we look enough at these maps. Mary of Magdala, okay, or Mary Magdalene, okay? Does she play a prominent part in the life of Jesus? She absolutely does. Mary Magdalene, okay? So he's gone to that region there. So read 11 and 12. Maria, read that for me. Why were these people looking for a sign? Why were they looking for it? They didn't believe. They didn't believe. Why can't they believe, Lucille? They're seeing this with their own eyes, these miracles that he's doing. The feeding 4,000 people with, just a few little loaves and a few little fishes, that's hard. I tell you the truth, I think I'm more naive, but I believe a lot quicker than that. I believe when the guy saws the woman in two, the magician saws the woman in two, I just believe that she's in two parts now. Don't you, Jerry? I'm easily convinced, okay? Yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
I agree with what Melvina said. You also think that some may have believed, but because if they did 100% believe, they didn't want to give up their power. So it was a thing of prominence. I have to admit now that Jesus is the Messiah, and everything I have built up work to, it's all God. I'm no longer look at me.
Not only that, this is so revolutionary. They couldn't fail having to do this. Not only just the religious side of it, but the treatment of women and everything was just upside down.
Yeah, yeah.
And they just using it to get behind it.
Yeah.
Thomas was the same way.
Thomas was the same way. Yes, he was the same way. We know the state of Missouri is considered the show me state, okay? And they did not want to believe things unless you show them, okay? And that was their little, and it's their nickname even to this day. There's nothing wrong with asking for proof of something, okay? But these people have been given a lot of examples of proof. But they're hard-heartedness, okay? And like we said, if they don't want to give up what they don't want to give up what we've attained, okay? Positions in life. Do we see politicians doing that? There are politicians right now in Washington, there have been probably forever, that are way too old to be there. And I don't mean that to be mean or mean-spirited, but there comes a time you got to go to the house. If I went to the post office right now at 66, as opposed to 23 when I really did go to the post, 23-year-old Shelby could get her done, honey. 66-year-old Shelby, probably not so hot, okay? But just compared to me, I could work the post office all day and come home and work 2 more jobs, okay? Now I barely can walk to the clothesline and back. I don't put up.
The key verse of this to me is the last where it says they came down with the intent to dispute.
Yes.
Look,
yes, right.
And the scary part of that is the fall, verse 13, and Jesus slept. He didn't argue back, he didn't fuss, he
Yeah.
got the voting.
Right.
And that's what, if you don't want to believe, if you want to sit there and argue, and
Right.
you can look for hope.
Yeah. Jesus told his apostles on the limited commission, he said, when you go out, if they don't receive you, do what? Shake the dust off your feet and move on. That don't mean you give up on the people completely, but you don't just stand there and just argue with people. Jesus says, no sign shall be given. Okay? No sign shall be given. Yes.
Sometimes today, Christians want to try to get it into people.
Absolutely.
And you can't always force it.
It's the worst thing. You can't drive people. You have to lead them. Now let's back up here to Matthew chapter 16. What did he say in this instance? Granny, do you feel like reading that? Would you read this for me? Okay, Jesus in Matthew here, this is not Mark, but this is Matthew. He said, you know what the signs say. Red sky at morn, sailor take warn. Red sky at night, sailor. We all know that. And we all know that. And that's pretty much true. You can kind of count on that, okay? Now we got weather things and stuff like that, but used to, that was critical for sailors and stuff to, oh, let's go sailing off. It looks like it's going to come a hurricane today in the Atlantic Ocean. I'd like to be in the middle of that. They had to know because their lives depended on it, okay? Remember Paul's voyage to Rome? And he says, guys, be better off we didn't leave here. Nah, we're good. We've got to get this cargo on to Rome, okay? And they had great loss, okay? They lost everything but the men, okay? But you cannot discern the signs of the times, okay? Do people think that the time they're living is the most important time that there's ever been in the history of the world? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we falsely go back and we criticize people. Why did they act like that? That is so wrong, okay? We cannot judge anyone else for the decisions they made at that time. If you lived in central Kentucky and you was born in 1921, there's a really, 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 really good chance you was going to World War II. Unless you were something wrong with you, you're going to be in World War II. And you may be at Omaha Beach. You may not be, but you may be at Omaha Beach. If you was born in 1948 or something like that, there's a really, really, really good chance you're going to Vietnam. Okay, whether you liked it or didn't like it, mad or happy about it, you're probably going to go to Vietnam, and you've got a really good chance of getting killed. Okay, you was born in Alabama in 1840s or something, and come time for the Civil War, you're going to be fighting for the Southern Army. And if you're from the North, you had no idea about fighting anything. If you didn't have $300, you went to the Northern Army. Okay, and a lot of them people got killed. Okay, so we sometimes we get excited about this is the most important time. This is the most terrible time. Perryville, Kentucky, 1860. Baptist church over there stacked up. Bodies are stacked up on walls and legs and arms stacked up outside. That's pretty tough, son. Cannons going off 2 miles away. You think, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Antietam and Gettysburg, places like terrible. And we had it rough today. My mail was 30 minutes late. I tell you the truth. Now, I got this bill, and I've already paid this bill, and I got to call and cuss somebody out because I got this bill I already paid. That's how we operate in it sometimes. Okay, continue. Mark 8, 13 through 14. Continue, Leila. Read these two. Go ahead.
And then he charged them, saying, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, it is because we have no bread.
Okay, the guys are in the boat, and they think something to eat, okay? And so then Jesus then says, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. Well, I don't know about you all, but I have watched a lot of Three Stooges shows in my lifetime. Tom's watched a lot. Jerry, you probably watched a few. They always use too much yeast when they're cooking. Always. It says a pinch, and so then they pour the whole canister of leaven or yeast in there. Do what? After they squeeze it as tight as they can. Yes, okay. And so then they have the cake that always blows up, okay? And that's what the Three Stooges do, okay? I don't know anything about cooking, but I know that you just need a little bit of yeast. We used to sell these little packs of yeast, okay? Fleshman's yeast in the country store, okay? I remember that my whole life. You remember that, Lucille? And people use a little. Now lots of stuff is self-rising and stuff like that. I understand from what I limited knowledge of cooking. But Jesus says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. What's he saying there? The sin that they have, because it just takes a little bit to ease in. That's why when we pass laws in this country, they bother me, because they seem like the most inauspicious laws or something. They don't look like that's not really a big deal, but it just opens the door, doesn't it? It opens the door, and then pretty soon the door's slung completely back or maybe torn off the hinges completely. Okay, so that's why we got to be real. Well, let's just change the Second Amendment in the Constitution. Let's just change it because, these people are getting killed. Well, regardless of your beliefs about whatever the situation, you got to be careful when you start changing things, okay? Because it starts going crazy, okay? Yes, Josh.
Years ago, if you had an ounce of marijuana, they'd throw you under the jail.
Yeah.
Now you go to Portland, Oregon, and you can buy meth, heroin, all of it.
Yeah.
Because you start, like you said, open that door, now the door is open.
Yeah.
And so everything's just leaving.
It gets out of sight. But Jesus talking here, he said, don't let that sin creep in, okay? Don't let that sin. What if I decided tonight that I'm going to go down to the local bar and just Well, I'll drink one beer. That's all. I'll just drink one beer. Every alcoholic in the whole world started out with what? One drink. One drink. Somewhere, somehow, some way, they took that first drink, and then it sometimes snowballs into disastrous, terrible situations, okay? So the disciples are in the boat, the apostles in the boat with Jesus, and they said, oh, he's talking about we didn't bring any bread, and we're in trouble. Well, isn't all what Jesus is talking about good? Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? That you may be a new lump since you are truly are unleavened. Sometimes has put too much or not enough ingredients in food that she's made, and sometimes you just got to take it and throw it over the fence. Okay, and it's frustrating for her. She makes the homemade bread, and sometimes it just didn't rise or whatever. You toss it out, and the dogs or the wild animals eat it. That's okay. But Paul's talking here in Corinthians. He said, "Don't be gloried." He said, "Don't you know that a little leaven leavens a whole lump?" Okay. I'm sure that all these people that tell these big tall tales probably started out with a lot smaller tall tales. But as time and listeners improved, they just started getting more and more, and sometimes the tales become unimaginable. Mark 8:17-18, someone.
Jesus being aware of it said, why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? And you having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember?
Continue.
When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take in? They said to him, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 loaves for you for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take in? And they said 7. So he said to them, how is it that you still don't understand?
Jesus gets frustrated, doesn't he? Just like we get frustrated. If I try to teach somebody how to do something, and I know how to do it, and it seems pretty simple, and I show them once, and I show them twice, then I show them 3 times, and they still haven't got it, I'm ready to throw my hands up. I'm done. I'm just not patient, and I wish I was. Some people will show you the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 29th time, okay? I'm just not that person. I'm a poor trainer in that regard. If you can get it, you're good. If you can't, I'm not so hot, okay? Jesus here is frustrated with these guys. We are not talking about eating, okay? We are not talking about, weren't you there? Weren't you there when I fed the 5,000? How much do we have left over? You just saw this miracle where we fed 4,000. How much do we have left over? I think Jesus is saying, you think I can't make some bread if I want some bread? Clearly can. He's talking about this. Understand. That's one of the the apostles I know didn't get all this stuff. They did not get it all, but it went in their minds, don't they? It went in their minds. There was a show one time that Steve Martin was in, and it wound up, his wife was found out she's pregnant, and they were getting a little older. They were in their 40s, mid-40s, and I don't remember what the name of the movie was, but she's pregnant. And they're going back to their 4th kid. The other kids are all getting older, and you don't have that responsibility with that little one. And so then the wife's mother moves in with them, and she's getting some Alzheimer's and dementia. And so he's frustrated to death. I'm got a new baby on the way and more responsibility, and I think we've passed all that. And the old woman sitting there at the table, his mother-in-law, and she said, her husband who was deceased, she said, he used to take me to the carnival and said, we'd get on the merry-go-round and go round and round and round on the merry-go-round. And she said, I liked it. And it wasn't scary, and it didn't make me upset or throw up or anything like that. But she said, every now and then he took me on the roller coaster. And the roller coaster was up and down and scary and exhilarating, exciting, and all those things. And this Steve Martin's walking around the kitchen with his head full of stuff, and he thought, what is this old crazy woman babbling about? What is she babbling about? What is she talking about? We're not talking about this at all. I've got bigger problems. And then she said, I like the roller coaster. You get more out of it. That's what she said. That's life, folks. The old woman that had dementia was not speaking foolishly. She was speaking accurately. You get more out of it. Some people won't tell you how old they are. I heard a woman say one time, I can't leave that year out because that's the year my mother died. I can't leave that year out of my life. That's the year my son was born. Okay. Every single day of every single year in your life is vitally important, okay? It's vitally important, okay? Embrace every single one of them, okay? These men right here need to embrace the fact that we're with Jesus, the Christ, okay? And you're going to get a lot more out of your life, okay? You're going to get a lot more out of life. Jesus gives sight to a blind man. Someone read 22 and 23 for me. Okay. He came to Bethsaida, and they brought a man blind, and he begged him to touch him. Took him by the hand, led him out of town. Why did he do that probably?
Because if you go back and look at Matthew 11:21, you'll see that this is one of the times that Jesus said, woe unto you, because they wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't believe.
And if you've got somebody who maybe doesn't have the strongest faith, you've got to get him away from those things.
Yeah.
We read where Jesus says he couldn't do many miracles because of their lack of faith.
Right.
So the first thing you got to do is get somebody out of sin.
Yes.
Get someone away from that thing.
Yes. Right.
The good place where they
Yeah.
what they're preaching.
Yeah. We had a man came here, I don't know, a year or so ago. Kevin and I talked to him, and he had a lot of issues. And he said, I want to be baptized today. And to baptize you into Christ. But you've got some serious issues, young man. And he did. He had some very serious issues. And we said, you have got to get some help. You know, he has a terrible drug addiction. And we got to get you some help first, okay? Because we could baptize him. Like Ben says, you got to pull them away from this bad situation, okay? You got to pull them out of the fire, as it says in Jude, okay? And he really didn't want to be baptized. He just wanted some money for a new pair of shoes. That's what he wanted. And that's fine. That's fine. But he thought if I'm baptized, they'll buy me something, you know, or give me some money. We've got to be careful. So Jesus leads him out of the town, and it says, and when he spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And the man said, what? People look like trees, okay? What does that imply to you? It's blurry. It's blurry, okay? It's like trees moving or something like that. Well, he may have. Yes, he may very well have been able to see. Right. So Jesus put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up, and we restored and saw everyone clear. Could Jesus heal this man without doing anything but saying the word? We know about that. The centurion servant, he says, go your way. You know, your servant's been healed, okay? Jesus could do however he wanted to, okay? And we've talked about this as we talked about miracles, and we're doing that now. Jesus can heal any way he wants to, okay? He has power over everything. But the man is made completely whole again. Now, what a wonderful thing that has to be. Don't go into the town nor tell anyone in the town. Why would he say that?
Because one, you don't want to go back into that sin that's in town. And two, he's trying not to create a sideshow.
He's trying not to create a sideshow, okay? Okay. Now, Mark 8:27 through 28. Continue.
He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered and said to him, you are the Christ. And he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about it.
I have heard people say to preachers, Jerry, you've probably heard this plenty of times, don't feed them the whole bale of hay at one time, okay? Jerry gets up here, and if he tells you everything he knows, we're going to be here a long time, okay? And after a while, your brain's going to explode, okay? I can't absorb all this, okay? This is more than I can handle, okay? You can't teach about every subject in the Bible during one sermon, okay? Jesus is not teaching his apostles the whole counsel of God in one visit, is he? These men are walking and talking with Jesus day in and day out. They're sleeping next to him. They're going through the same hardships as he did. When the people had been without bread 3 days, without food for 3 days, Jesus and the apostles had been without food for 3 days as well, okay? The hardships, probably a lot of times pretty scared, okay? We're going to get killed. You remember whenever they said, we can't go back to Jerusalem or we'll be killed. And he said, well, they finally said, well, let's just go with him. We might as well die with him because Jesus, he was teaching them. And he says this question, who do men say that I am? And they said, some say you're John the Baptist, even though he's dead. Some say you're Elijah, even though he's dead. Or maybe one of the prophets, even though they're dead. But he says, who do you say that I am? Who do you say? And Peter says, you are the Christ. And he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about it. He didn't deny it, did he? Jesus didn't say, no, you've got that wrong. I'm really not the Christ. I'm just a prophet. He didn't say that, okay? Because what? He was the Christ, okay? Here's some other examples of people proclaiming Jesus as being the Christ. John 1:41, he first found his own brother Simon and said to him, we have found the Messiah, which is translated the Christ. Who was that person? Andrew. Andrew says, we have found the Messiah, okay? What a wonderful thing. Read this for me. So Nathanael in John 1:49 says, Rabbi or teacher, you're the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Okay, read this for me, guys. Some of the saddest verses when Jesus said, when many of his disciples turned and went away, and Jesus looks at his apostles, will you also go away? And they answer him, they said, well, who do we go to? For you have the word of eternal life, okay? I have said that several times during sermons, will you also go away? I have known people, folks, that have been in the church most of their life. And you know, they left it. Jerry, you know people that's done that. You'd have never thought it. There's no way that person's leaving. But they turned, when the sayings got hard and when the troubles got difficult, they turned and left. But Peter, he says, well, who do we go to? And you got to think about that. If you leave the church, where do you go? What's your next option, okay? And we've come to believe and know that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Martha said to him, yes, Christ, the Son of God, who has come into the world. Mary and Martha and so, and then what? So we all need to believe, don't we? We all need to believe. We're going to stop there. We're not quite finished. We've got just a few verses left, but we just talk about him being killed here in a little bit. But Jesus was the greatest teacher ever. He is the only Savior that's available. We have no other choice, folks. And it's the most wonderful thing in the world to be a member of the Lord's church. I want to be in that number when Jesus presents it back to God and says, these are the people that need to be saved. It's washed white and it's washed clean. No spots, no wrinkles, washed in my blood. I want to be in that group, and I know you do too. Anyone have any questions? Thank you all so much.